Call out my name, call out my name.
This is the JWN podcast.
Call out my name, call out my name.
Today's show is going to be a fun one. When you hear the word pansy, you might not immediately think of a beautiful flower. Unfortunately, the word tends to have an offensive connotation when it's not spoken in the context of something like, say, a floral arrangement. The Victorian meaning of pansy is to think, particularly to think of love.
It's a risky move, it's a dangerous game. If you wanna play, call out my name.
The flower is also deeply rooted in various mythologies, including Greek and Roman mythology, German and Scottish folklore, and even in Christianity, where it's believed that the three petals represent the Holy Trinity. My guest today goes by the name Pip the Pansy. And if you've ever seen her live show or listened to her music, there's no way you would ever confuse the intent of her name with anything offensive. Her keyboard is covered in flowers, her music is rich in messages of love and mythological themes. And after my conversation with her, I've learned that she's also a deeply spiritual person who's overcome unbelievable hurdles resulting in a rebirth. In a world where there's many people named Aaron, there's only one called Pip the Pansy. Here's my conversation with Pip the Pansy.
Lull you to sleep, tear you apart. Give you a dream, eat out your heart.
I first saw you at the Royal American, and I was like, what am I witnessing here? I was immediately taken aback visually by, just the presentation, the flowers, the outfit, and then just your stage presence. And the music then, of course, was just really good. And it's one of those things where you don't realize, like, how do you say this? Like, I didn't...
I'm blushing.
I didn't know... Well, I didn't know what to expect. I was just like, wait, what is Pip the Pansy? And then, and I'm like, that's exactly what that should sound like. Holy cow. And it's really good.
Well, thank you. That's so nice of you to say. I love that.
And I was instantly just like blown away. And then you pull out flute and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah. Well, yeah, people, I feel like a lot of people have like what the frick is Pip the Pansy? Because it's such a, what a disgustingly cute name. So I've had several people have a similar reaction where they're like, I don't really know what's happening, but yeah.
Well, it's also fun to witness that for your first time in a place like the Royal American, which is kind of, it's a dive bar kind of feel.
Yeah, that's I think it might be my favorite venue I have ever played in America. Like, I can't explain it. It's just, the audience is so awesome, and the venue itself is just the perfect vibe for community, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they take care of everybody. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything's well thought out as far as, like, John Kenny is just a master of understanding. Because he used to play in a band. He used to tour around. He's seen the best and the worst, you know?
Right.
So he definitely brings that. And it's so heartwarming to see how well people respond to it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never felt closer to an audience. And I know that a big portion of that is because the venue itself is facilitating that kind of energy. It's so important. But yeah, Royal American is so fun. I'm really happy that was your first time seeing me. And my first time in Charleston too is at the Royal American.
Well, the other thing that kind of put me over the top as a true fan of Pip the Pansy,
thank you,
was at the beginning of this lockdown. You did something that gave me a lot of hope. So at the beginning of the at the beginning of the lockdown, everybody was just popping up on their. Oh, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of musicians were just popping up on their Instagram doing, what they think they could do. Like they're just all kind of just jumping up with an acoustic guitar, playing their songs and whatnot and everything. And then you had a live stream where you like you set up a room in your house, like a sound stage with lights. You put all your props out. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
filmed, like you had different camera angles going. It
Oh,
sounded
man.
amazing. You put on a proper show.
Well, I'm so happy that you appreciated that because so my husband is also a musician, and he and I both wanted to make sure we were really intentional about uh, what it was going to look like online. Like, I don't know. I have all these props at home. I might as well use them, and it makes me feel like I can perform if it actually feels like a show. If I was just going to do an acoustic thing, I think I'd feel super naked, and it's already awkward to be in front of just a camera and not an audience. So you have to do like even more to make you feel like yourself as a performer too, because it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, it was just, you had the graphics going. I just remember the whole thing being, I was like, oh my, I'm so excited. I was like, yes, this
Oh.
is how you kind of pivot for the moment. And I understand that not everybody is going to think in those terms.
Or have the equipment. I mean, I'm lucky that
Yeah.
2 musicians, we get double the equipment. So it's easier to get stuff done like that, you know?
Definitely. And it's weird. I'm coming to a realization right now, as I talk to different creatives and just different people in life, that not everybody is going to be mentally equipped to make that pivot, and that's not a bad thing. That's just what it is, and you shouldn't feel anxiety. Like, if that's not something you would think of to do, and you're a musician, like, that's okay, because that's not what that's you be you, that type of thing. Don't feel anxiety because you couldn't, pull off what you did, but you did give me hope.
Well, I'm glad it gave you hope. And jumping on the, just all of us having a different reaction to what's happening. It's like, that's such a good thing to it's a good reminder, because what a unique year. It's not like anyone was prepared to handle this. Like, I didn't have a global pandemic handbook, like what to do if this happens. So yeah, I think it is important for people to just be themselves. And I know for me, it's like I did like 2 or 3 of those live streams, because at first I felt this pressure to keep up, right? Like, everyone's getting on the internet. And honestly, I was a little bit annoyed. I was like, oh God, I'm just going to jump in and do the same thing everyone else is doing. It was like this normal reaction to stay relevant. But the funny thing is, it's like, staying relevant is a really dumb reason to make art. And this has been like, what a time to just sit and meditate with yourself. And I think the artists of the world are really, in a weird way, kind of lucky, because I was not going to slow down to stop and think about who Pip the Pansy is as an artist. And this has given me so much good freedom and time to really just to be an artist. I mean, this is a good time to be an artist, because all we can do now is sit at home and make stuff, So
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense with
It makes
everyone
a lot of
having
sense.
a reaction, but that was my reaction. Was like, I felt kind of lucky in a weird way.
Well, I think a lot of people felt like at the beginning of this year, especially at the time when it all kind of unfolded, people were geared up and like they were ready to shoot out into like whatever, the festival season was just about to start. There was so much stuff that, like, you felt like everything was about to explode, and then all of a sudden someone just kind of cut it off at the pass. and so you had this.
Yeah, it was a quick adjustment. I know I had a tour with Kishibashi. I had festivals for Pip the Pansy, and then I also had a Euro tour with Kishibashi. And in 2 days, it just all got completely erased from the calendar. And it was, that was a quick adjustment. I'm sure so many people in the music industry were like, okay, there is nothing now. What do we do?
It became very, very, very scary, but there was all this pent up energy, you know what I'm saying, at the beginning. And
oh yeah, definitely.
And I think at this point, I'm starting to see different forms of artwork that have kind of adjusted and are figuring out. It feels like people are coming out of their cocoon a little bit now. Some people are.
Yeah, that's true. We have a few shows kind of getting sprinkled around.
Yeah, I've actually, I know you're going to come play in Charleston soon.
Yes.
And I know that the venue that you're playing, they already had an outdoor stage set up.
Right.
So
right.
I went and saw a couple weeks ago. My friends dragged me to because I've been going nuts. I need to go see live music.
I gotta get out.
And they dragged me to a show there, and then not dragged. I shouldn't say it like that. They invited me
you.
to. Yes.
There you go.
And I didn't even know who I was going to see. I showed up blind, and it was a band called Sex Brews, and they're kind of like
I love Sex Brews.
yeah. I had no idea what they started playing. I was like, what am I even watching?
They're so silly, so silly.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But the whole setup was great because it almost felt normal because they've already had that setup. It wasn't like in a tent or in a parking lot. They have that back deck with that outdoor stage set up, and it's just, I didn't feel unsafe. I felt great. I felt, just normal for a night. It was pretty cool.
That's so nice. Yeah. Was it half capacity? Was everyone in there?
They sell tables. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So each table, you buy the table. Yeah, and each table is distanced, and if you leave your table, you got to put a mask on, that kind of thing.
Oh, good. So, yeah, Charleston Poorhouse. So they're taking all the proper precautions so that we can still have a fun time.
It's definitely a really normal feeling experience to go see a show there. So hopefully you'll feel that as a performer.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm bringing a drummer with me. Actually, this is the first time that I'll have this kind of a setup. But I told him, I was like, I don't know what these shows are going to look like. For me, a lot of the live show is on the performance. I mean, obviously, like, I'm performing music too, but the actual, like, I will go out and dance or jump around with the crowd, or like I like to hop on the bar. And I realized like that is not necessarily going to be a part of my show this time. So yeah, it's good to hear that it was normal as an audience member, because that's been a big fear for me is, are these shows going to be, they're a little more nerve wracking because I can't rely on, doing those kind of, not tricks, but you know what I mean? Those little things you're
used to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm bringing a drummer because I thought if the energy in front of the stage is different, at least I'll have like a buddy with me. That was really important for me because I don't want to, trying to cover all my bases and make sure I can still have the energy for an audience if the audience is not able to have the same energy that they normally would have.
I think that's an excellent idea. There's a band here called Two Slices, which I believe you might have played with.
Yes, I've also played with Two Slices.
Yeah. So when they first started, it was just the two guys, DJ, and
Laser
then when
Cat.
yes, and when they brought on the full band and they brought the drummer, it changed the sound tremendously.
Oh, I've never seen them with a full band. I think when I played with them, no, they did have a drummer. I just hung out with the two of them. Yeah.
It changed the sound completely. Like it just like you said, it makes things a little bit more alive.
Yeah, sounding. And just the energy of having more people on stage. Like, I started out in a band in Athens, and I had like 3 horn players. I had a bassist, I had guitars, I had drums, and then I had myself on keys. And I wasn't trained a musician, and so I actually got really intimidated by working with these guys. And then I ended up like firing all of them, which I feel terrible about. And I went solo. But I've been solo for so long, I forgot what it's like to have another person on stage with you. And it's just a drummer, especially. They're moving so much. And this guy that I'm bringing with me, we're really kindred, really, really good friends. And I don't know, I feel like I've never had that on stage before. So I'm most excited. It's weird because I'm most nervous because I know they're going to be socially distanced and different. So I'm very nervous, but I'm also like the most excited I've ever been for shows because it feels like I've had all this time to like work with a friend on the music. And
that's exactly like the type of thing, like you're taking this opportunity to figure out, hey, how can I adjust? What can I make new? And you might come out of this with something completely unexpected and new for you that will be, an inspirational change.
Yeah, hopefully.
So that's the silver lining that might come out of all of this. Hopefully that we come out of this.
No, I know. We will come out of it. And artists thrive in this environment. We need some tragedy to,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
the chaos is
yeah, inspiration is
plentiful.
all inside of the chaos. You got to dive really deep in there. It's like, it's not if everything was great, we would need music a lot less. So
Oh,
we're
yeah.
lucky we can work more than ever in a way, just not on the road.
Yes. So you brought up your old band, and it's very interesting because I think you've pulled a lot of your older music off of the internet.
Yes. I have.
But you can even see in Pip the Pansy the first earliest releases in what it was like 2016 or 17.
Yes, and those were actually released as Ren, which is my previous stage name. But I was able to change the name on Spotify for that. Unfortunately, with the other one, the album art had
Ren,
I think Ren on it. I can't remember. It was a whole complicated thing, and I didn't like the old album at all. So, but
well,
yeah,
but it's definitely like two different beings.
oh, completely.
And if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about that whole transition? Because it's I know it might be painful, but it's such a
no, it's good now.
crazy
I don't feel
story.
as traumatized by it. But yeah, just stop me if I ramble because sometimes I get lost in the story. But basically, yeah, I used to perform as Ren. I started out in Athens, Georgia, right after school, and Ren is my grandmother's maiden name. So I'm really close to my Mimi, and I don't know. It was just important for me to keep her name going somehow. I was really, really attached to this name. And before I chose it, you do some research, make sure that there's no one else with the name. Well, there was one song on SoundCloud under the name Ren that had been released like 2 years prior. So my dumb butt was like, okay, there's no one on iTunes or Spotify. I think it's fair game to be Ren. And yeah, just really worked at that for 2 years. And I call it in the trenches touring, when you're like sleeping in a van in the parking lot and having just really crappy gigs, and you're playing for basically just the sound guy and the bartender. So I was deep in the trenches with Ren, and that makes you, when you get your hands dirty like that, I think you're even more attached to that kind of stuff. So yeah, about 2 years in, I started getting these messages and emails from just random teenagers that were really pretty ugly and telling me that I was trying to be their friend Ren and blah, 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 blah. Well, sorry, I'm telling you the long version. I don't know.
That's okay. I love it.
Because really the short story is I just had a trademark lawsuit, but I like for people to know that Ren was so important to me because that's what made it kind of this tragic thing at the time. Now it's silly how upset I felt about it, but
I don't think it's silly at all. I mean,
thank you.
You chose a name based on someone you love that's very personal to you. And then you went and got beat up, scarred, just lived in the grime. You put in the dues under that moniker, and you've done all this work. And now for some just scrappy teenagers to try to take it away from you.
Sure. Well, thank you. That's really validating because sometimes I feel so happy now. It's hard for me to tap back into that. I remember I was very upset, but yeah. So this girl, it turns out, her dad works for The Voice, the TV show.
Oh my.
Yeah, NBC The Voice. So she lives in LA. Zoe. Oh, I can't say her name. The other girl, the other Ren. Oh, shoot.
Fake Ren.
The other Ren. Yeah. Well, she's technically the real Ren now. So, congratulations to her if she, for whatever reason, would ever listen to me talk on a podcast. But anyways, yeah, her dad's well known in the music industry, blah, blah, blah. Well, she comes at me and it's just, basically lawyers get involved. I'll cut to the middle part. And she ends up suing me. I end up suing her back. And there's just a lot of really sketchy things that happened in between. And we ended up actually not winning the lawsuit. We didn't go to court, but when we sent a counterclaim, they backed down and they bought Ren from me. But that was after 1.5 years. So for 1.5 years of my career, after being in the dirt and the grime, I'm not allowed to tour. I'm not allowed to release music.
Wow.
It's crazy. I mean, I could tour locally, but any markets that might be shared between me and this girl were kind of off limits. That was like the legal advice until whatever. And but
Wow.
meanwhile, she picked up a tour with, I think, Nash. They had a big hit on the radio maybe 4 years ago. But they had this big tour. Well, she has these connections. So she gets to her first tour ever. She's on a tour bus with these guys. Like they're doing really well. She's opening for the headliner, and like, just all of a sudden this girl's numbers skyrocket. Like she went from one little SoundCloud song to like doing okay. Like she was
Yeah.
semi-established in LA all of a sudden after she realized that I had taken her name, right? And so that was another frustrating part. Was I was like, man, I've been working so hard and I'm still kind of just this, dingy independent musician that has not too much going for her. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it. They sued them back. It cost me a ton of money. I'm still in. Luckily, my dad covered what was left of my legal fees, but I'm still like pretty in debt to my father. And it just, it was crazy having to change everything over. And I had been talking to it's like record services in Nashville, that we were going to work together. And when this all happened and I told them I was going to change my name to Pip the Pansy, they dropped me because they didn't want to work with someone with Pansy in the name, just for the
Wow.
potential offense. Yeah, man, that year I was really in the ringer, and she had set the court date to like 4 days before my wedding. So, it's
Oh my
like I'm
goodness.
getting married, and spending so much money, and my company's doing terrible, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm a ball of complaints, but it was
you
all for
have
the
a right
best.
to be. You have quite the right to be upset.
But I'm lucky though, because my family it would be a whole different story if I didn't have my parents to lean on during that. I mean, I'd be a bankrupt person. That would be, because when someone comes at you like that, you almost have no choice but to respond if they sue you. And at first I was stubborn. I was like, I'm not going to let go of this name. Are you kidding me? Like, this girl
Right.
hasn't toured at all. She had nothing on iTunes or Spotify. Like, I've been out here grinding for 2 years. Like, I'm not going to roll over and give some entitled LA girl this stage name that she hasn't worked on in however many years. So that was my attitude at first. And man, it just got so ugly to the point where I was no longer even representing, like, if I go back to my grandma and what Ren means to me, it's not meant to be this ugly thing. I don't want to associate that name with this really horrific thing. And so it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let them have it, because at this point it's degrading to this name that is so important to me to just continue doing this. It's like, I don't want to be this nasty person that's stubborn. Like, I want to be a forgiving person that moves forward and can just flow with all of these curveballs. So it was actually a pretty transformative experience in that sense, because I learned what, when you hold on to things that you think are important, sometimes they start to lose the importance. And that's not worth it. If it's important to you, you have to preserve what it means, not just try to hang on to what it looks like. So,
it seems clear to me that there's something in you that is able to absorb something like that and turn it into something even better.
Maybe now, but at the time, I shed a lot
you didn't
of
feel
tears.
that at the time.
Yeah, I had to learn a lot during that year.
I mean, there's something really cool about what you went through and how you ultimately handled it. And I'd like to believe that you have become this vessel for this spirit of this pansy called Pip.
Oh, yes, man, that means a lot. That's like, you're speaking my language, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it feels like when you can hear it, even at the beginning, like you said, you kind of rebranded the early stuff, and you can see it was a little bit more of a traditional indie rock kind of sound.
Totally.
And now you've gone into this electro pop kind of, and it's accessible. It's not like out there weird. It's just a very unique, very wonderfully just different but also accept, you know what I'm saying? Familiar,
Yeah,
but
no, I
different.
appreciate it. Well, it's, you know what it is that I finally feel a bit more authentic. And I think any musician that's authentic, that's what you're feeling. It's not even necessarily what the setup is or the instruments are. It's like people know when they're witnessing something true, and people know when they're witnessing something not so true. And like, sometimes we're just acting. And I think people feel that because any of those, like the really great artists that last forever, it has everything to do with them just being themselves. And so it's funny because I started with, I'm not saying I'm one of those musicians, but I would like to be as authentic as them. But I started music with kind of that classic setup because I grew up such a daddy's girl. Like I only listened to the Beatles for probably the first like 16 years of my life. It was only the Beatles, like obsessed. And I just wanted to love them because my dad loved them. And so of course, when I decided to do music, I was like, well, I really foo-fooed on electronic stuff. And I was like, oh, this pop music these days, kids don't know what they're like. I was just like such a little like snob about it. And like, I don't know even the first thing about music. I went to art school. I like who am I to even think such a thing? So that's why I started with that. And the funny thing is one day I bumped into Grimes, who is, I don't know if you know her, but she's a very strange electronic kind of girl.
She's a little bit more famous now for other reasons, but
I know, it's so annoying.
I did know her music before that. I knew that.
Good. Okay, we're in the same club. I hate it, man. So many people were like, "Yo, your girl got knocked up by Elon," and I'm like, I don't care. I just like her albums.
Yeah, no, she's definitely she's got that kind of
she's authentic
pop thing.
Yeah,
it's a weird bridge between different genres. It's cool.
Yeah, but I bumped into her, and it was the first time. I think someone sent me one of her music videos. They're like, you'd really like the visuals of this. And I was like, oh, okay. And at first I was like, I hated it. Her voice was so grating. It was so electronic. But for some reason that night I went down a rabbit hole, and 5 hours later I was like the biggest Grimes fan you've ever met. But it was so inspiring because I was like, oh, she's doing electronic music and it's still authentic. Because like, yeah, okay, the Beatles had a band, but the thing is they were freaking authentic. They didn't have any, they weren't trying to be anything. They were just being the Beatles. And with Grimes, it's like, she's not trying to be anything. She's just being Grimes. And so, but that night was a big night in my career, just sitting, I was in my parents' basement, just watching YouTube videos. But that was a big switch for me where I was like, I don't like working with a band. I don't have a really strong background in like musical training. And so I have a hard time communicating what I want. I'm too shy to practice with them. Like I just kind of stand there and don't even try because I'm so intimidated. Like I was miserable playing with a band. And it's like, why am I forcing myself to do that because of some stubborn idea that real music is a band? Like who even cares what music is? Like I just want to make art. Like it's not even about music or whatever. It's like, I just want to make art. And so that was this huge thing where it's like, maybe I should try electronic music. The one thing that I kind of put my nose up about, because maybe that will facilitate me as an artist instead of like, I don't need to flex as a musician. If a song is better, me just pressing play and going and dancing with the audience, then I'm going to do that. And if the song is better having a flute solo, I'll do that, whatever. But yeah, it was this huge thing where I was like, why was I so attached to the music portion of this instead of the artist portion of this job?
It might be a maturity thing too, because I can remember like when you're a kid and you learn how to play an instrument and you join your first band, you're practicing in your friend's, basement or garage or wherever it may be. You're so focused on the music that every garage band does this, that you neglect the vocals. So you work so hard on the music, but nobody can sing good. And so then it's when it comes time to sing, you're like, can you layer some distortion on that? Maybe drown in reverb, whatever.
Oh man, that's awesome.
but yeah, it's one of those things to start focusing on actual songwriting and yeah, for you, the performance as well, to be able to experience it both as the performer and as part of the audience. That's really like, that's an awesome opportunity for someone to be able to do that.
To like be able to go out with the
Yeah,
people?
to go out there, and because when you get out in the audience with them, you're almost seeing what it's like to see you.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is actually a nice opportunity. No offense to any sound engineers, but you can kind of be like, okay, is the sound engineer actually making front of house sound good? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool experience, it just gets everyone super psyched when they see that.
Yeah, in a way, it's one of those. Trick is not the right word. I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of. Or at least in a way, it's a gimmick because you know that if an artist is going to come in the audience, it's going to get the audience like, woohoo! Like you don't even have to do anything. You just have to like step off the stage. So in a
Yeah.
way, it's gimmicky. But I genuinely enjoy. That's what's such a bummer about this whole. The biggest bummer about the pandemic thing is like, I genuinely enjoy going out there and dancing with people. So now I'm like, oh, I don't. That's like the fun part of the show for me.
Yeah. I'm wondering. I imagine you'll discover a new way to shift that. Not to put any pressure on you.
No, we'll figure it out. And I'm so grateful Charleston is coming up because y'all are such a good audience. I don't know what it is. There's something really super
We're
awesome
thirsty.
energy. Y'all are thirsty, is that what you said?
We're thirsty for because we're not on the touring circuit for most bands. Like
That's true. That's true.
People skip over South Carolina when they're on tour.
Well, they're missing out, man. Because my favorite shows have been at the Royal American. I had a couple good ones at Charleston Poorhouse. And those are
You'd
good
fit in
venues.
at the Tin Roof as well, which is kind of right next door to the Poorhouse.
Wait, which one?
The Tin Roof.
I don't think I've played Have I played the Tin Roof?
It's truly a dive bar, like punk rock dive bar.
Cool.
But it's such an intimate place. It's like their stage is maybe 6 inches off the ground. That type of thing.
I like that. That's fun. It's fun. Like, I don't know. I used to hate the dive bar thing, but now I really enjoy it. Like those shows are sometimes more fun than the bigger venues,
I love the contrast. The idea of this flowery kind of bubbly performance going on, and you look around in the walls and it's just like, oh yeah, look at this DRI sticker.
You know what? I think that's why I like it too. The contrast is fun for me as well.
Yeah. And people honestly notice when somebody has that punk rock DIY spirit, and you definitely embody that.
I appreciate it.
I think it might have been like the second time I saw you, and I saw you like lugging all this equipment and like carrying things back and forth. I was like, she's really doing it all.
I know. And people are so kind. They're always like, let me help you. But I have such a particular way of packing the truck that I have to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. People are so nice. Actually, people in Charleston have helped me take stuff to my truck before. But yeah, man, it's DIY. I've had to sleep in that truck before in like a McDonald's parking lot. And
well, that's very frightening.
Yeah, it sucks. But if you just park where the lights are, my mom hates it. She'll hate when she hears this, that I've done it so many times.
I remember, so I used to play in a band back in the day. And the first nationwide tour we went on, we had a converted mini school bus.
Whoa.
And yeah, so we built like a loft in the back and we put all our equipment underneath the loft.
Dude, we're working on one right now.
Oh yeah.
My husband's outside, like literally making the bus right now.
It's definitely a step up from a regular van because you have a little bit more headroom.
Yes, that's so cool that y'all had a small bus. Okay, sorry, keep going. I'm excited.
Yeah, no. But we did that thing, and we had so many things. This was back in the 90s. I think we did actually have one cell phone among us, but it was like an old school, flip phone type of thing.
Like in a bag? No, that's the 80s.
No.
Not a car phone.
But it was like, if you used it, it was like $5 a minute type of thing. It was
Totally.
Like emergency use only. And we also had one of those little, those devices that you could hold up to a payphone and it would simulate the sound of a coin dropping in. So you could steal phone calls.
That's amazing.
But the things we did on that tour, we were, teenagers. And if our parents knew, they would have let us leave the house. The places we were staying, like the things we were doing, the experiences we had on that. Yeah. So when you were telling your story earlier on about like paying your dues and you're still kind of paying your dues by sleeping in your truck and all that stuff, it lasts forever. Like that kind of thing. There's a certain bond you have with other musicians that you see it. You're like, oh, this person will do anything to perform, to play their music for you. And so, yeah, we see it. We see you.
Yeah, exactly. Road dogs unite.
Yeah.
I love it.
We also have something else in common. And I don't know how much you still use it, but I noticed right away in the imagery that you share on Instagram. And I don't think these are photos that you have taken, but I think that your influence is there, is that you did go to school to become a photographer.
Oh, yeah. So, some of them are mine. And so I work with my friend Jordana Dale. We went to school together and we both love film photography. So working with her is my favorite because we just do photo shoots galore, all on 35 millimeter.
Wow.
Yeah, my album art for Love Legends, that one that one's my composition. I had Jordana take it for me, but that one's on a 4x5 large format camera. So, dude, you went to school for photography too, or like you're very?
No, I didn't go to. I'm just a photographer.
No, that's so great though. You don't have to go to school for it. I mean, sometimes that's just a waste of time, honestly.
No, I went to school for something completely different. I fell into the photography honestly as a creative outlet. After I got married, had kids.
Yeah.
And I had gone back to school and I have a career in information technology and all that stuff. And it kind of becomes like a soul-sucking thing for someone who's creative.
Totally.
And then I discovered photography just through having children and taking pictures of them. And then one thing leads to another. And next thing you know, yeah. But I do a lot of the things I think that scared you away from photography. I do a lot of corporate type of stuff. Headshots and things like that.
Oh, sure. That did scare me away.
I'm curious to hear about you from the photography standpoint, like the fact that you're shooting on film still, that you're just shooting large format. That's just amazing.
Yeah, I'm an old soul at heart, but wait, I want to know where I can see. I guess can I follow you right now? Let me get my phone. I want to see your photos.
JWN Photo is my website, but it's very. You'll see like, oh, here's a picture of like real estate.
But that doesn't matter though. You can still tell if someone is honestly, it's not that I have anything against that. I think that's still art. It just, for me, I was taking pictures of like weird, it wasn't my vibe, but I have a lot of friends that are like, really, they take the most beautiful wedding photos. They take these beautiful corporate photos. Like, it's still photography,
It's one of those things that I tried everything at the beginning. When I started really getting into it, I tried every type of photography possible, and I whittled it away. And then I found I love doing headshots. It's probably my favorite thing to do. Just working one-on-one with a person, and my only goal is to capture a specific expression. Like, to me, it's so stripped down and simple, and it's just focused on their face. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I love that. I love that kind of working with someone on that level.
Yeah. And trying to actually capture their personality. Because people really, as soon as a camera lens is in front of someone, they change. And so it takes a really talented photographer to get someone to get back to like equilibrium, Because I'm the same way. As soon as the camera's up, I'm really like I get tense. I hold it all in my mouth,
I almost try to think of like, how can I set up? I want to figure out a way to install like a life-size screen that's showing a live view of my camera, so people could feel like they do when they're taking their own selfie. Because people are so comfortable doing a selfie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because they get an instant, like they know where to put the camera to make themselves feel comfortable. So if they see what's going on,
I highly recommend that. Definitely a mirror.
It's a weird thing, but for the most part, talking people down and letting them relax and getting in their head a little bit. Music plays a big part of that.
Yeah. Well, and you're very comfortable to talk to. So I imagine in a photography setting, people probably can feel pretty relaxed. It's a nightmare to have a photographer that makes you feel weird. And you're like, oh God, now I got to sit in front of this camera with this person. Yeah. I bet you're really good at it. It's cool. But
it's a fun thing.
Yeah.
As far as what you have done, though, because imagery or the look of Pip the Pansy as an entity, a spirit realm that has taken over this other person who is a musician and creator and creative spirit. The imagery is an equal part of what I find so fascinating about what you're doing, because it's, performance, it's the music itself, of course, but the imagery that you put forth, there's such a thing going on. It's like, what is this? Like, you could stare at an image for more than 10 seconds in 2020.
That's a big deal in 2020.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can stare at everyone's so used to just seeing an image for a split second as they're scrolling and like, oh, click, scroll, like, that kind of thing. If something makes you stop and look at it and you go like, wait a second, what's going on with her eyes? What's this expression mean? Like all that stuff. And I see that a lot in your photos. So I'm always just like, and when I found out that you were, a photographer as well, I was like, okay. So she really understands like the imagery aspect of this.
Thank you for noticing. Not just Thank you for looking at my photos for more than 10 seconds.
Well, people need to go follow Pip the Pansy on Instagram and check that out, or just look at your album artwork alone. It's really, it's part of the package of what you're getting into. There's other artists that are like that I find, like St. Vincent, for instance.
Yeah, she's so cool.
Yeah, her imagery, she works with, I forget the photographer's name. I follow her on Instagram as well.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the photographer, but I'll check that out for sure. Yeah,
it's interesting cool when they have a relationship like that. Like you have a relationship with a friend of yours that's a photographer.
It makes a difference because you get you grow together, and then you also get consistent. I guess there's like a spirit of consistency within it as you also are like changing and growing. But I mean, I love other photographers too. It's just, I feel like Jordana has been taking photos of me since I first started doing music. And so she's been through the name change with me as well. It's like she's been through all these iterations of Pip, and that it is actually like a pretty unique thing, but I'm so grateful to have a friend that has been my consistent photographer. So yeah, I didn't know St. Vincent had the same thing. I'll check her out.
But it makes such a huge difference because it's, again, it's part of the whole thing. It's more than just one form of art. You're taking all different forms of art to
definitely
to present this existence.
Yeah, that's what allured me to being a musician. It wasn't necessarily the music. I mean, I love music, but I didn't. It's weird. I grew up with a pretty musical family, but I never recognized that was like in my blood. I just thought that was normal. And so I never as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? I know in elementary school, I wanted to be an author. And then in high school, I wanted to be a marine biologist. And then finally settled with photography, but music was not a main passion in my life. And then, so after I graduated college,
that's crazy. That wasn't until after college that you decided to get into music?
Oh, yeah. Because, and here's why. It's like, we sort of touched on this a bit ago. I was applying for photography jobs and I was so uninspired by these jobs. And I'm thinking, what did I do? Why did I go to school for this? I don't want to shoot bat mitzvahs for the next hour. That's not my passion because I really love art. I was such a theater nerd in high school too. It's like, I wanted to try everything and I wanted to be in all the plays and I wanted to be in art classes and blah, 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 blah. So it just seemed like being a musical artist would be a good option to incorporate every passion in every way with full control. I mean, not really a control freak, but I think that maybe my strengths lie in creativity. And so having full creative control over everything was, I liked the job description. So yeah, and that's why though that first iteration of my musical persona was dishonest, not dishonest, but
it just wasn't. We talked
about it. Yeah, not mature yet. Because I wasn't in it because I had something to say musically. I was just in it because I had something to say and I needed to figure out how to get to that point. And it's not up until really like now that I feel as though I have like, and like when I say now, I mean during this pandemic. And
Wow.
I'm so excited to finally be in front of people because even the earlier renditions of Pip and even the one that you saw, I mean, she was pretty close to maybe a pretty well thought out state, but really these past few months have been like the final thing. Like I feel like I finally like unlocked the cage and Pip is ready to be out fully and confidently. And
that's exciting.
yeah, that's not, and I'm not trying to be like cocky. I hate that. That didn't sound very
No, be cocky,
humble.
please.
No, but like, well, I want to have humility. Sometimes I forget, but like, I'm excited too. And that's why I talk about it, not to be like boastful, but just that it feels so good to tap into an honest, version of myself artistically. And maybe I'm kidding myself and there's definitely still more work to be done, but I don't know. This just feels different than it used to feel.
You're what it sounds like of this moment, you feel like realized, like you feel like sharp, like you've kind of
sharp is a good word. I like that. Yeah. Like really just this. Yeah. I finally got to the point of it. Like this is Pip. And now there's something for Pip to work on, because I think now I was just working towards finding Pip. And now I think I found Pip, and now Pip has to work towards, whatever it is that there is to say. But it's just it's like there've been so many chapters, but this feels like maybe it's a novel that has like different parts. Like, like part 1 was Ren and there are all these chapters. And then part 2 was Pip the Pansy and there's all these chapters. And now I feel like I'm on part 3 and I'm sure there's many more chapters and who knows what part 4 is, but.
Oh yeah. I like that. I like that you're open to the idea that Pip the Pansy tomorrow might be a completely different entity.
Yes. And you have to be open to stuff like that in life because, maybe this sounds morbid, but I could get in a car accident tomorrow and both my arms break and I have to get them amputated. And it's like, well, I'm never going to play flute again. And I'm never going to be able to press buttons on my whatever. And like, that's a really extreme scenario. But I like to play those out in my head because no matter what you are, you're not in full control. Anything could change dramatically in a day. We all felt it with this pandemic. And so it's like, I have to be open to the fact that even my musical career is not the end chapter. It's not the goal of the book, or, you just have to know that nothing's forever. I mean, so.
Yeah. You're embracing the fact that there's this energy inside of you that you want to share, that you have to share. Yeah. And you're going to use whatever tools are available to you at this time. And who knows what that's going to look like tomorrow? Who knows what tools will be available?
Totally.
That's so cool.
Well, it's fun.
I love it.
Yeah. We've been listening to so much, like Joe Rogan podcasts. I love Jordan Peterson. I've been reading a ton of Dostoevsky. Like, I love all these things that are just like, you just go deep down this rabbit hole of rebirth or enlightenment or just, I don't know. It's just a fun world my husband and I have been like just kind of deep into that sort of podcast world, or Midnight Gospel on Netflix. Have you seen that yet?
No, I've not heard of that.
Oh man. So there's this guy, I think he's a comedian, Duncan Trussell.
Oh yes, I have seen that. Duncan Trussell's awesome. Yeah. Where they take his podcast and they animate it. And it's just like, wait a second.
Yes. That's what I mean. That like, I've been eating that stuff up. I'm like, I can't get enough of all this like crazy, weird, trippy psychology. Like, I don't know, man. It just makes you sit and appreciate things a lot differently. But I do enjoy
taking in, especially opposing views of people who are well thought out. Like Jordan Peterson's not somebody I fully am in line with, but there are a lot of things he says that yes, and then there's other things I'm like, I don't know if that works for me. But I like to hear somebody because I like to hear somebody who really has thought it out for themselves and figured it out for themselves where they're at, because we do live in a weird culture where we're quick to tune out things that don't immediately line up with what we
Oh yeah, it's
are
crazy.
expected to believe or think or things like that. And sometimes you want those other opinions. You want to figure out why someone believes the things they believe, or they get into the things that they're into, just because you're like, well, okay, maybe I missed something here. Like, where's our common connection? Because at the end of the day, we all live together, we all breathe together, and if we were all the same, we all thought the same, it would be a very boring place.
It would be so boring, and we wouldn't know. I mean, maybe this is too lofty, but it's like, as a single human being, you don't know how things work on your own. I mean, it's just absolutely impossible. You have to be surrounded by all these different mirrors to try to get to the bottom of, if there's a universal truth, like, not one person knows it, but it's somewhere, it's buried within everybody, and everybody reveals a different part of it. And it's so important to stay open-minded. Obviously, if someone's being an evil, racist butthole, like, you are smart enough to call that out, but you shouldn't just assume that everyone, like, I don't want to say checked out, because that sounds like, well, you have to take responsibility, but like, I just avoid that portion of social media.
There's a fatigue that especially in
and
an
everyone
election year.
feels it.
Yeah, the fatigue is so real. I remember, it might have been 2008, where I let the news consume me. For like election stuff, and like watching the news every night, coming home and just like having it on, to the point where it was affecting me, like, in so many ways, like physically, like affecting me. I could feel the drain, and then I just cut it off, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to take my news in on my own terms. I'm not going to like be like drip fed this stuff through IV
Totally.
every
and
day.
Talk to real people.
Exactly.
Like, all this back and forth on social media, like, it's just so strange to me that we treat social media like it's our diary. Like, how vain to assume that everyone wants to know exactly everything I'm thinking at all times. Like, that's disgusting. Like, I think everyone should go get a diary, write your thoughts down in your diary, and then like take one highlight and put it on Twitter if you really want to. But like, it's just so silly. Go talk to your friends. Don't do this bickering back and forth ugliness. It's just not. I mean, we were talking about authenticity. It's so inauthentic on the internet. There's too much of a facade. It's like, it's impossible, nearly impossible, to get to the core of somebody. Even the people that write really nice, long, well thought out things, it's still really difficult for me. Maybe I need to, sometimes I get too scrappy, maybe. But like, even when someone is, I think, being honestly kind and writing a long thing, it still makes me roll my eyes. I'm like, okay. Like, but if someone told me that, just like if we're hanging out over a cup of coffee, I'd be totally into it. And it's just, there's just something that happens on social media where it can't take anybody seriously. Just like, got to put a grain of salt on everything.
Right. And it's hard to read someone's intent, because people posting on social media, they're not professional writers. They're not experts at conveying what they mean through text.
Totally.
So it's hard to
know their heart, really.
Yeah, and it's so easy to dismiss them too, because, like you just said, because you're reading it and you're like, you know what? I didn't invite this into me right now. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm scrolling, and all of a sudden you're going to hit me with this. But when you're having an actual conversation with a human being, I've had so many conversations with people I completely disagree with on a topic, but it's always civil, and I always learn something. And I always gain a new appreciation. And it's always, in those situations, it's always a race to find the common ground.
Right.
And that's what's missing in a lot of these social media interactions is where, you're almost in a race to prove yourself right.
Yeah, you're not like running to each other. You're running as far away from each other as you can. It's like this weird, the more we
Who
do
can
it, the
copy and
farther we
paste
are.
the fastest?
It's
I
crazy.
can copy paste my opinion.
But it's crazy though, because I think everybody feels this way. Like what we're saying right now is not it's not like a unique feeling. Like everybody I talk to feels this way. So it's like, what?
How many of your friends have deleted, say, Twitter or Facebook from their phones? You know,
Probably a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's becoming the thing that you do for your own well-being.
Yeah, it's so toxic.
And it's an odd thing because I love Instagram, the idea of Instagram, simply for the curated. I follow a lot of artists.
Me too.
I follow tattoo artists, photographers, visual artists, and musicians. And like that's what my world looks like on there. So when I get on there, it's usually very uplifting. And there's not a lot of negativity. But when I get on Facebook, it's like a family reunion. You can't leave.
It's so funny. My family, I have a big Italian family, and the rule is we can't talk about politics, religion, and then a certain family member that I won't say.
or Uncle Vito.
Yeah, exactly. We're like, so these are the 3 off-limit topics: are religion, politics, and so.
That's hysterical. Yeah.
It gets really heated in that household sometimes.
That's awesome, though. That you have that those boundaries set up so that you can like make it through a meal.
Yeah, it's so silly. Yeah, you're absolutely right though. Facebook is like a terrible reunion that you can't leave, and everyone's talking about their opinions. But
yeah, I do think though that we can be the change. You know.
Yeah. That's positive.
It's hard.
There's too many piranhas and too many bots, and like there's just people out there actually just to be annoying on the internet. That's like there's people that like being instigators on social media. So I don't know what we do about them, and yeah, I'm just as addicted as the next person, and I've totally posted my feelings and opinions about stuff, and then the next day I feel embarrassed that I did that. Like, oh, I'm so annoying. But like I'm just as addicted as the next person to this stuff. So, but I still hate it, but I love it.
So on this social commentary thing, and this can go back into music, or just creativity in general. What's something that you used to believe strongly that you no longer believe?
Oh man, what a very...
I know it feels like a job interview question.
No. It's great because the first thing that comes to mind, I don't know if it's the answer you're looking for, but, I was born into a Catholic household and I was raised Christian, and I had a certain idea about religion that has radically changed, but it's actually come full circle, where I think I started with a certain view that things are thought of a certain way. And then I kind of went through a little bit of life's journey. Maybe you start having some doubts about it, but then came full circle. And like the way that I look at actually Christianity, which I know is not the world's most popular subject at the moment, but that has radically changed to where I can like confidently come out and say like that I believe in Jesus, but Jesus doesn't look at all like what he looked like to me maybe 3 years ago. So I know that's not necessarily like a political thing that has changed, but that's a pretty big one for me, that just that I don't know how to explain it. It's too big of a change.
Yeah. Well, I'm still on that journey trying to define for myself what spirituality is, what religion is. I also grew up in a Catholic church and was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school up until through
You're
all
a recovering
high school.
Catholic then?
Yeah, and it's funny because I grew up in New York, and the neighborhood I grew up in.
Where are you from?
Wilston Park in Long Island.
Oh, okay. So you're like a city guy.
Yeah, well, it was just right over the border of Queens, so we were in Nassau County, but it was like the first town over,
I'm from Syracuse, so I'm upstate. Yeah,
Canadian, I see.
Almost.
That was just the tease of anything, anything north of the Bronx.
No, totally. Yeah, we would do Niagara Falls on like a day trip sometimes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but anyways, you're saying so you grew up
Yeah, no,
Catholic as well.
yeah, and I remember talking to some of my neighbors as an adult, going back to visit the old neighborhood, and I remember talking to one of my very Catholic Irish neighbors. We got to just a discussion about religion, which was odd, but okay. And he said, "Don't worry, you'll be back."
Oh wow, that's kind of creepy.
I was like, okay, I don't know if I will be, but I definitely. I went to the Vatican a few years back with my son, and you definitely feel the draw when you go to a place like that. You're like, oh, the tradition here and just the beauty of the art and all of that. You really are like, wow, and
you take it seriously. People were serious about that when you see freaking the Vatican. I mean, they weren't doing that for anything other than for God. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's very. There's something about it that kind of brings you back to your roots, that type of thing, and you feel like at home, that type of weird.
Yeah, it's
thing.
strange.
But I don't know if I'll ever go back to being a practicing Catholic, but I always have a respect and some form of reverence for it, just from the fact that, that church really did help me when I needed it at that time in my life back then. So I'm not going to get mad. I'm not an angry recovering Catholic, but yeah, it's religion's such a weird thing because we have a lot more information now. We have access to a lot more information now as humans,
right?
And we're able to kind of see why it existed, when it existed, why you kind of put the things together, and you're like, okay, yeah, how do you control people? A large group of people, how do you keep them in line from like not stealing and robbing and murdering each other? Well, you need to have rules, and you need to have an entity that's watching over them,
Right. But I actually don't. So sorry, am I interrupting a good thought?
Nope, you're not.
Okay. That's another Italian thing. We all interrupt each other constantly. But I don't know that the original intent of religion was to control people. I think that ends up being the all things fall apart, right? Like everything eventually is going to get corrupt as it rises to some sort of power because people misinterpret it. But and this is where my viewpoint has changed so much, because I used to really think like there must be some bearded man up in the clouds watching my every move, and now I'm realizing, I could be wrong. It's not like I've figured out religion. But for me, just the fact that we are conscious beings, and there's no other way to describe certain experiences that we have consciously. It helps to put it in the narrative of a story, and those stories become these religions, maybe. And I'm realizing in this new chapter of life that I've literally been in hell. Like, wow. I have, we can call it sin or whatever. I have done things that went against what I believe is a universal truth. I think, okay, this is, stay with me, man. I'm going to get trippy.
I'm with
you. Okay. So just the fact that there's a Big Bang theory and the universe started. It's like, okay, there's a beginning, and then the fact that things can get like sucked up by black holes or whatever, there's an end. So I think whatever God exists in the thing that is most true about all things across the entire universe is that there's a start and there's an end. And so you could call that a story. And even there's a story of our day, there's a morning and there's a night, and every hour it's like there's a beginning, there's an end, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You could spiral down to the smallest moment, like the moment we're having right now will eventually end, all the way out to some universal landscape of the universe started. And I think then within that beginning and end story, there must be some other universal truths in that landscape. Like there's already that one truth, that there's birth and there's death. And I think that when you act against that truth, when you try to deny its existence, or when you try to, whatever, we call it sin, right, as Christians. So I realized that I had done things that were sinful, not necessarily like physically, physically, yes, because I think whatever is happening spiritually, we also act that out in the physical world. But I think what's more important about sin is this inner consciousness thinking that it can go against whatever universal truth that there is, if there is one. I could be wrong. I'm open to being wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had a point in my life kind of during that Ren chapter, and right around the time that I met Sam, my husband, but before we were together, that I was just like, I was pretty jaded. I had been not treated right by people around me. And so I thought, you know what, let's try something different. And like, instead of trying to be this good, nice person, I'm just going to do whatever I want. Like, that's what everyone's done with me. I'll do it to everybody else. And so it's like a really horrible way to be. But the more I did it, I exponentially was falling deeper and deeper into hell, to the point where I didn't know who I was. I mean, I was so confused, so depressed, constantly anxious, constantly frustrated. But like literally one time just kicked a hole in my wall because I was so pissed and jealous about something, just really, really ugly, cancerous darkness inside. And I don't think anyone on the outside knew how far down into hell I decided to journey. And that's the thing, is like, I think religion is not like, we're not trying to control people. It's how do I get the sovereign individual to know that it's divine? And so for me, religion it's for me. It's like,
yeah.
And hopefully when I'm doing what's right, it naturally will influence others. I don't have to go out and like, quote unquote, save people. That's not my job. My job is to be saved. And then people will see whatever power is on display in that way. I hope maybe it will touch other people. But, people taking Christianity and thinking that they can use that to damn other people or to include some people in the club or whatever. It's like, in my mind, that's such a complete misinterpretation of what faith can be as a tool for the individual. I'm sad that it's been used to judge others when it's really just meant to judge yourself. So that, because once I started acting accordingly to whatever truth that there is, things got better. And I feel like I'm closer to heaven today than I was 2 years ago. Man, I was still crawling out of the fiery pits of hell 2 years ago, So sorry, that's such a long ramble. Oh my God, but
I like it. I think what I wanted to maybe not I'm not going to discount anything you're saying at all.
Oh, but you can, and I won't be offended.
No. When I say that religion was, when I say religion was used to control people.
Oh, you don't think that? I know that.
I'm talking about organized religion, like the structure of different churches, even to this day.
Yes, yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're exactly what you just said, where they're trying to tell people what to do, and they're trying to put these things in line, like,
sure,
you can't do this if you're this person. It's like,
silly, so silly.
Yeah, and where I have arrived at this point in my life is more of a kind of, it kind of falls closer to Buddhism in the idea that we're all connected. We're all part of the same. We're all made up of the same substance. We're all like stardust. You know what I'm saying? We're all, we all share the same energy.
Yes, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and we're almost like one living unit that's, like your body is made up of different parts. Your fingernail has no idea what's going on with your eyelashes, but they're still part of you. And I feel like you're the eyelash and I'm the fingernail. In other words, we're all part of this one living being. And that includes all living things, even inanimate objects like dirt and
Yep.
rocks
Yep.
are all made of the same stuff. So I do feel like we're all one thing, and to act like that, to if you believe that, and then you treat everything with that kind of respect, like you would not want to disrespect anything, because then you're just disrespecting yourself. You know, you wouldn't want to harm something without,
Absolutely.
everything should be done with a certain amount of intention. And it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. We all have habits and things in the ways we were raised. And every time I go to the grocery store and I pick up, a package of strawberries, and I'm like, why does it have to be in this plastic container that's going to be around long after I die? What? Can't we figure out a better delivery method? That kind of stuff. I look at the belt when I'm unloading my groceries on it. I'm like, look at all this packaging.
Oh, I
Like,
know.
why is it necessary?
I know. We're supposed to take care of all these things.
Yeah. But those are the kind of things that you start thinking about when you start getting into that mindset of like,
Oh, yeah, man.
we're all connected, we're all one. And you're like, okay, well, how can we do this better?
It's just love. Yeah. And that's the same as Christianity. I think that's where Jesus looks different for me now, is because I realize it's not just this one character. It's the same story is played out over history, and the same story is played out in other religions and all this stuff. And so I'm totally with you. I think we're all definitely coming from the same place. I think what you said, basically, I totally agree. And if you just love everything and look at it like, even as like a child, like even people that I get so frustrated with, if I can like imagine that they're 5 years old and they go home and they're all alone and they're crying, I have a lot more sympathy and love, because then instead of just being pissed or like, why'd they do this to me? Because I've been there, like I've treated people horribly, and then I went home and cried because I was so I hated myself. I was so sad. I was so lost. I was so confused. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I could look at myself as this little child that just needed love and just needed to be told what's the right thing to do here, Yeah. And that was helpful. And then you can look at other people like that, and that's helpful too. Even people you hate, it's like, man, but you can have a little bit of empathy that they just maybe they don't know how to deal with whatever's happening right now, or they're just confused. But yeah, what you said, we're all from the same thing. We should just love everything as if it is ourselves, because I really believe it is. I really believe it's all God. It's just God loving God.
The idea of self-care comes to mind too, because it's one of those things a lot of people struggle with. The idea of like, hey, the reason why there's so much cruelty in the world is I think people don't love themselves enough.
100%. I'm with you on that.
And if we can figure out a way to tell people, hey, it's okay. Like before you were saying like you were getting cocky or something, like, no, please be cocky. Because I think you should be. I think you definitely have earned the right as a human being to be proud of yourself.
Yeah, sometimes it's just celebrating. Like, I feel like I'm celebrating truth. And I don't want to get overly religious on this podcast, but that's where the excitement comes from. It's like where I'm like, when I say I feel the most Pip, it's like I feel the least. And so Aaron's my real name. I feel the least Aaron, and therefore I'm the most empty for the most truth to spill out. And that's not me celebrating myself. That's just me celebrating the truth. It makes me feel so happy. And so, yeah, but sometimes I'm like, oh no, are people just going to think I'm cocky? But that's cool that you're like, no, we should celebrate it. Cause I'm like, I feel the same way where I'm like, I don't want to come off as cocky, but I also really want to celebrate the fact that good things can happen through people, Well,
I also enjoy the fact that you freely want to talk about where you are in your faith, your religion, what your beliefs are, honestly, because it's something you probably grew up, like you said, you had a rule in your family that you're not allowed to talk about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now it's like, hey, I want to talk about that.
And I feel like strong enough on my reasons why. Like in the past, I didn't know why. When someone's like, are you a believer? I'm like, yes, I'm saved. And I don't know why the heck I'm saying that. But now I know what I'm talking about. So it's like, if people disagree with me, I have enough armor on to like kind of stand my ground and fight that fight. Not that it has to be a fight, but that I like that analogy of having on some sort of armor. I'm ready now. Whereas before I was just going out there naked, like anyone could pierce me at any point,
Heck yeah.
Like I would fall apart if someone disagreed with me. But now I'm so like, I've actually read some books. I feel a little bit smarter now.
And if someone disagrees with you, you have the tools to look and say, all right, why are you disagreeing with me? And where do we agree?
Yeah, it's not the end of my world. It's a learning opportunity.
Definitely. Because exactly, you realize what you have in common, and those disagreements are usually on minutia, But the core, you guys are, you might be on the same page with somebody that you're disagreeing with.
Right.
So not all the time, but most of the time.
Most of the time you are. Most of the time, if you can just keep asking why and you get to the bottom of it, you're both standing on the same bottom floor. You went up two different staircases. But if you keep coming it down to it, it's like, I think most people stand on love,
Well, yeah. And you find out like just through, I'm a big fan of diversity in life, like surrounding yourself with people who come from different backgrounds, different religions, different races.
Diversity of thought too. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I remember growing up in New York, I was definitely blessed with diversity. I was the only, right before I moved to South Carolina, I was working at MTV Networks, and the team I was on, I was the only white Christian waspy kind of person. I was the only one. There were other white people that may have been Jewish or of different, things, but it was completely across the board. Different backgrounds, different things. And working as a team with these people, it was the best. And we had so much fun. Every day we looked forward to lunch so we could just sit down and talk about life.
Yeah.
And it was just such an uplifting experience to be able to have that. And I think people really need that, because then, like all the things we're saying, you find all the commonality, and then you realize, hey, this person that grew up Muslim is no different than me as far at the core. They have the exact same beliefs. Even when I met my wife, I was at a time spiritually and religiously, like where I was just kind of in this weird kind of pushed back, suppressed, you know what I'm saying? Point.
Yeah.
And she grew up with no religion at all. None in her house.
Free spirit.
Completely. And she was, and probably still is to this day, the most morally in tune person I've ever met. Like, she was so good. And I was like, wait a second, she didn't grow up with any of these things that, you know what I'm saying? She's just good because it's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying she's not a spiritual person. She just didn't grow up with any of that. And it opened my eyes. And the more I looked into that, and I was like, oh, so what is morality? How do we gauge what is correct in our decision making? What's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong? And like you said, the universal truths start to show themselves.
It works out good people tend to be a lot happier, and they also tend to have good things happening around them versus someone who we would quote unquote say is bad. And it's it's not just this thing that's, the opiate of the masses or the thing that is to control people or start wars. It's it's just so you can live a good, happy life and spread good, happy things, you know? I mean, it's not all that, but that's beautiful that your wife has that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because it does upset me, though, when I see, like you said, religion used as a vehicle for war.
It's a shame.
I mean, when you look in the history of humanity, it's been holy wars have been the majority of the wars in the history of this. And it's so wait a second. How does that line up with anything that's written down here? But then,
it doesn't.
Man.
But that's what they say with and maybe this is a wrong interpretation, but when I was reading Revelation kind of at the start at the start of the pandemic,
Oh no!
which is I know kind of a strange coincidence, but I heard something that really inspired me to go read Revelation. I don't think it's actually the end of the world, but yeah, when the four horsemen of the apocalypse come, the first one is like a conqueror, and then it brings war. And that's the thing when you have this second realization of the story of Jesus. It's not that he comes and you are now the right people and there's a bunch of wrong people. That's the first thing that happens with the first interpretation of religion, is that you think that you are now, you have the answer, and so you're in charge of all the people that don't have the answer, and that's what starts wars. But it's like, it's so funny though when you go through Revelation, it's like you see all the ways in which over the history of time we will continue to fall to the same misinterpretations, you know? Maybe that's too heady, but
no,
but you're talking to a weird artist, so I guess it's expected.
If I talked to Pip the Pansy and you were just completely vanilla, I'd be very sad.
Okay,
I'd be very let down. I was like, this podcast stinks.
I'm just imagining some people feel like, oh, okay, here we go.
No, I mean, at this point, if you're going to consume something like Pip the Pansy and you're not open to figuring out what that all entails, then that's on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're just looking for some nice beats and some pretty visuals, it's there. You can take it, for that. But if you really want to take it in fully, like, yeah, you get the whole package. This is great.
No, yeah, this is so fun. This might be one of my favorite conversations with, I've done a few interviews, but they're a little more structured. This is fun.
Well, yeah, I kind of like, if you saw the list of questions, you've already answered most of them just through conversation. So there's no reason to ask them. You know what I'm saying?
Cool, yeah.
But I like to have a free flowing conversation and take it where it goes because, yeah, it's more fun.
We need it, man. You're doing good stuff, because that's the thing. It's like we were talking about all this social media stuff and how do you combat this weird way of digesting people's opinions. But long form podcasts, I think they're great for this age. We need to listen to people just diving into stuff, that whether they agree or disagree or have some more content than however many characters you can have on a Twitter post,
Well, and to get a soundbite type of thing, there's this weird misinterpretation, I think, through years of people, of a few people controlling what gets out there, where they think that people's attention spans are tiny.
Yeah, no, people want this kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially, I don't know how you listen to podcasts, but a lot of times I'll be out on a run or I'll be driving, and it's a way to escape within yourself while you're doing something and just, to feel like you're part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's so fun. I mean, we're not driving as much now because obviously touring's not happening. But yeah, I mean, we were kind of road dogging it a lot last year, and it was great. You could throw on some of them are over 3 hours long. That'll get you pretty far on the road. And I'm always completely entertained. Not always. I'll turn it off if it's a boring one, but usually I'm pretty entertained the whole time just listening to people have a conversation. Like, who'da thunk it?
Right. And it's so not structured too. Those are the best ones. The ones where there's some structured podcasts that I love, like some overproduced ones that are just okay, but I like the content. Like Radiolab comes to a lot of those NPR based ones, but Radiolab comes to mind because it's just so squeaky clean and so much every second is well thought out and and the content's there. But normally, if I had heard that, if I tried to do that, it would be it would be boring. It would be awful.
No, this is fun. You're a great conversationalist. I don't.
Oh, thank you.
I'm normally pretty anxious talking to people, but I feel pretty calm.
I think at the idea of trying to talk to other creative people is definitely allowing you as a creator to get to that place of feeling you're not there. We're not trying to accomplish anything specific here except to just kind of get to know where you're at right now and what's going on at this very moment, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it.
So I do have a question for you.
I'm ready for it.
Now that we talked about how we're not structured, we're going to get back into the structure.
No, we need one. We need a structure, and then we can paint outside the lines.
Well, this is an easy question. What is some sort of creative thing, movie, TV show, music? Like, what's something you are right now fully into that you think other people should be checking out?
Oh my gosh. Okay. There is an album. I got to pull up my Spotify because I'm not going to be able to say this guy's name correctly. I think he's Japanese, and so I apologize. Okay. Susumu, Susumu, Yokota, Yokota. He has an album called Symbol, and it is like a combination of like more meditative, maybe some like more Eastern meditation music mixed with very classical pieces that are, maybe we don't all know them by name, but they're pretty familiar, like some Nutcracker Suites or Clair de Lune is one a lot of people know because it was in the Twilight movies, or some Chopin or whatever. So he like mashes these two genres together and layers them, and it has been the most helpful album for just relaxing for me. Like I'm so entertained. I feel like I'm on a fun little musical journey, but I also can let my mind do its own thinking. So I highly recommend. I'm sure all of us are a bit more anxious than usual at this time of year on top of a pandemic. So that's a good album for if you need 5 minutes to cool off. Any one of those songs on there. Symbol.
I love it. I've never heard of them, so I'm going to. I just pulled it up on my Spotify and hit the little heart button so I can go back to it later. Yeah,
Susumu Yokota. I mean, it's not for everyone. It's funny because my husband and my family, sometimes they'll hear me listening to music, and the other day I was listening to Tibetan throat singing, and I think people are like, what is she doing right now? But I like to clean to that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny is some of the cooler festivals that I've been to will always have kind of an act like that.
Yeah.
I went to Riot Fest in Chicago, and they had this like, I should look up the name of it. But it was like this group of like, it was like heavy metal monks like doing like throat singing type stuff.
That's amazing.
They're probably not monks, but they kind of look that way.
Sure.
And it was, the whole crowd went crazy. The crowd was just totally into it.
Man.
And, those are the kind of things that like, you never know when you're going to come across something like that where you're just completely taken off guard and you're like, I don't know what that's going to be.
Right.
At the same festival, they also had, Riot Fest is kind of a punk rock music festival, and they had the Village People play.
I'm not familiar with the Village People. What do you mean?
The Village People, YMCA.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm like, yes, you are. You like how I just demanded who they are.
Okay, sorry, continue.
But the Village People played, and when I tell you, the crowd's probably mostly teenagers. People my age are in there too, because a lot of the punk bands that are playing are from like the 90s and that kind of time. But, a lot of kids just slam dancing, circle pit. They did a wall of death to the Village People, to like 70s disco. So you never know like when that kind of, when, what I'm saying? You can't like sit there and go like, oh, people are going to just love this one type of music. And then you bring in something like you just brought up, or, Tibetan throat singing.
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely one of those things but it goes again, like with what you said about long form podcasts.
You just never know what you're going to get, man.
Forever people try to tell you what you should be listening to. And you're like, no, we're going to do this a different way.
Yeah. Oh man.
I'm trying to find the name of that group.
You said it was a festival in Chicago?
Yeah. The Who. That's what it was called. The Who, but not like The Who.
Oh, I was going to say, wait, The Who?
No, the HU.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's like, wow, sounds like The Who just like took it in a new direction for that festival.
This band that no one's ever heard of, The Who. They got up and just started swinging microphones. It was crazy.
Oh man, that's funny. I'm trying to think if I've ever had this is crazy, but I didn't ever go to a lot of live music because I loved the Beatles and they don't play shows. So I'm trying to recall if I've ever gone to a thing and just been so caught off guard or like immediately struck by. Oh, actually, you know who the first time I was really struck by an artist was, do you know Caleb Hawley? He's an artist in where is he? He's in New York City. He's not necessarily like famous or anything, but we saw him on this festival cruise ship, and I think that was the first time I was like, what is happening right now? Like, no offense to other people, but there's a lot of not like really special magic moments out there. Like, that sounded so mean. Like, I even have shows that are duds, right? Like, people might just not, it's boring or they're not paying attention or whatever. So I've had a lot of shows I go to where I'm like, okay, like that's nice, but I'm not like in it. But I think, Caleb Hawley, he's a really good performer. That's the first time that I was like, what is happening? Like, this is like, I was so elated to be in the audience, I shouldn't say rarely. That sounds so mean. I always have fun, but like, that was like extra fun, I guess.
Yeah.
I was immediately a fan. I was like, I don't know this guy, but this is the greatest show I've ever seen in my whole life.
Those moments are they're so special because when they happen.
Yes,
you're totally kind of like grabbed, and you're
That's
grabbed
a nicer
like
way to
inside.
Put it. Yeah.
Like something grabs your heart. It's just like, oh,
yes,
like you're getting tugged at. I remember something we mentioned before, St. Vincent, who I had kind of heard of, and I never really thought about too much. But when I saw her live once, which was at a festival, I think it was in maybe New York. I took my daughter to like the Governor's Ball music festival, and St. Vincent was playing, and we watched her, and I became an instant fan.
Yeah,
I was like, from the stage show, the sound, her stage presence, I was just like, oh yeah, and it was that feeling that like, this is why I come to these things. This is why I do this.
That's so cool. I need to go to more live music as a musician.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing a great job of giving that to people, that kind of feeling, that kind of
thank you,
coming out of left field and just like, wait a second, I came to this dive bar, I had no idea I was going to experience that type of thing.
Man, but it relies on the audience too so much, because I've had plenty of shows that are not like I can feel when I'm doing okay, and I've had a lot of shows where I'm like, I didn't nail it. So I think it helps when the venue and the audience is amazing too. It's like, that's just a combo for everyone to be elated,
Yeah. Well, and I think the sound system plays a big part of that, especially for music that you're making, because you need to have that like warm blanket of sound kind of just kind of caressing you to make you feel like you're immersed in the whole thing. Sometimes when you go to a venue and the sound is not well thought out,
it's just miserable.
It just takes you out of the moment.
Oof. Or like electronic sets, and you get to the venue and they don't have a sub. And you're like, okay, this is going to be a weak ass performance.
Yeah. Do you ever bring like your own kind of stuff like that
No,
I
actually don't have
moments?
A sub. We have some QSCs. So like if I have to do a house show, I know one time I did a house show and I brought our PA system and I rented a sub. I don't actually have a sub. But my drummer that I'm working with, so he lives outside of Asheville. He's an interesting guy. He's kind of off the grid, like lives on top of a mountain with no toilet and like just like an old mountain cabin. He's so cool. But he has a nice sound system, ironically enough, and he brought a sub this past week. He was here all week practicing with me, and it was just like we were having like freaking rave party, in my living room 5 nights in a row for basically just my dogs. No one's
That's so
overwatching us.
awesome.
But it made such a difference, even just in rehearsing, because I rehearse without a sub, and
Mm.
but to set it all up with like a nice sound system and decorate the whole house in flowers and put on stage lights, it was like, oh shoot, this is like to have a magic practice. I've never had that before. So it's like having a magic practice might be like a good way to try to have magic shows too, like to really feel what it's going to feel like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm super excited. I've got one last question for you.
I'm ready.
All right. And this one is another kind of heady one. and it's a little bit confusing, so I'm sorry. But I have a feeling if anyone is going to appreciate the way I ask this question, it will be you.
Okay.
What do you think if you had like a, Bill and Ted's phone booth, you could go back in time and visit your former self. What do you think that Aaron from Ren, or maybe even pre-Ren, just Aaron, not Pip the Pansy, from back in that day, were to see what Pip the Pansy has become, or everything that is Pip the Pansy now, what do you think Aaron would think?
Oh man, you know what's crazy? I think about this all the time just to like remind myself that I'm doing okay, because we get down on ourselves as artists constantly. Like our ego takes a blow all the time, and so we think we're never good enough. But Aaron from any point during Ren or before Ren would be so happy, like to be like, I'm gonna be that. Like I've always been such a little weirdo and quirky and awkward, but I've never. I would be so pleased to know that I've gotten myself to a point where I can remain a weirdo, but like just continue to tap into the strengths of that, I guess. But no, she would be so happy. And even the fact, like, I got this really cool opportunity to play flute with a band called Kishibashi. And he does pretty well, like nationally touring. And like, I got to be a flute player on a tour bus. And I just know that me at like 20 years old would be like, what? We're going to go on a tour bus? Like,
wow.
Would be so happy and excited. And, dude, that'd be cool if we could talk to our past selves and be like, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to figure stuff out. Every day you're going to learn something new. Like, I wish I could, well, no regrets, but it would be cool to talk to past iterations of myself. Cause there were points when I was, you're just like, so this is life, I guess. And it's like, no. It's going to be way more exciting. And the thing is though, it's like, we're all in control of how beautiful our lives are. And it has nothing to do even with what we're doing. It just has to do with our outlook. But the cool thing is when you have a good outlook in life, it tends to be that good things come too,
Yeah, I think that a friend of mine once said, I was feeling down. This is a guy I worked with in the IT world, by the way, a former manager of mine. And I was feeling down about something, and I was just like, I just feel like I can't help enough. I can't do something to something was bothering me. And he quoted Michael Jackson, and it stuck with me ever since then.
What did he say?
He said, if you want to change the world, you got to change yourself. Like,
yeah,
he was quoting Man in the Middle. And I was just like, oh my God.
It's so true. It's crazy.
So yeah, I love the idea of trying to imagine what if the former person that you used to be, how they would feel. Would they be shocked? Would they be in disbelief? Would they be proud?
Yeah.
All of those things. And if those are the answers to the question, then heck yeah, you're on the right path.
Totally, man. What a good feeling it is.
Dude, you have been such a pleasure to talk to.
Yeah, this has been fun, Joseph. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited for you to come back to Charleston. I'm so excited for the world to be able to see you in your element performing.
Fingers crossed. But even if they never see me, I'm still having fun.
Oh yeah. Well, they can see your videos, but we didn't even talk about your videos. Your videos are freaking great.
Oh no, thank you.
So they can go on YouTube and check out your videos for your songs. We didn't even get into the weeds of your songwriting and all of that stuff.
We can do a part 2.
Yeah, I think at one point we'll have to get together and talk about. I have a feeling by the time we do that, Pip the Pansy will have evolved even more.
Yeah, well, I have a new album coming out and a new single. Yeah. So at the Charleston show is going to be majority new songs. I'm using y'all as my new album guinea pigs. You'll be the first people to hear it.
That is so awesome. Well, is it going to be jumping off of the last EP?
It's not part 2 of Love Legends. It's called Neon Garden. So it's my first full length too. And it's my first time producing it all by myself here at home. So I'm excited for our next conversation, because for me, the songwriting aspect of my career it's already radically taken a turn for the better for me, so.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that'll be fun to talk about. But
that is exciting.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for listening to my music and wanting to talk to me. And
I think the world needs to listen to your music, and they need to watch your videos, and they need to go on Spotify and hit the little follow button and make sure that they see what's coming up, because I'm excited to hear it. When's the new song dropping? The single?
I don't have a release plan, but White Line Fever, I'm hoping is going to come out in November. Everyone it says it's a bad time to be releasing music because of the election, but I'm like, I don't really give a frick, because I think people right now need music more than ever. So I'll try to release that one soon. And then the album definitely before 2021, but I still have to, I got to get some funding for mixing. If there's any wealthy donors out there that want to have their name on an album,
But you put it up on a GoFundMe type of thing.
Maybe. Yeah.
You could probably come up with some very creative incentives.
Yes,
for people to donate.
Yeah.
There's another Georgia band that I think both their albums might have been self-funded that way. Cusses.
Okay. Yeah, I did a Kickstarter for my first one, and then I am on Patreon. Yes, I am on Patreon if people want to do Patreon, but there's no pressure. I'm kind of being a joker right now. I'll figure it out, but the album will come out regardless at some point before 2021. But White Line Fever, that'll come out soon. Don't have an official date, but I would say in the next couple months.
Well, I'm going to link all of the stuff I can find to link to you. Your Instagram, your website, your YouTube, your Patreon.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's really, really kind.
And I want to make sure people know that if you're listening to this before, what's the date of your upcoming shows?
October 24th, 2020.
There you go.
With Little Stranger.
See, there's a whole other conversation, because you've collaborated with those guys.
Yeah, I freaking love them. They're like my kindred road dogs. I love John and Kevin Shields. They're my brothers.
Yeah, they're another interesting thing to come out of the South that you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, they're so awesome. Oh man, we're gonna have so much good stuff to talk about next time. I'm actually it makes me happy that we're leaving ourselves kind of hungry,
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Everyone go check out all that stuff. I'll put a link in the show notes, and just love each other.
Yeah, love each other.
All right.
Thank you.
What will they say in 1,000 years when they find my bones? Look at my teeth and speculate, but never know just how many times we kissed under the moon, just how many times I sang a song